Thank you again. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Chemo. And let me just say a word that I said on the radio about Chemo. He has the trait without which goodness can never prevail. And it's the rarest of all the good traits in the human being. There are, thank God, many kind people, many nice people, many generous, many loyal, but not many courageous. And that's what he has. Give him a hand because he deserves it. All right, everybody. So I want to do something this evening that is a feature of my radio show and my entire approach to issues. One of the mottos of my life and of my work is I prefer clarity to agreement. So I would like to provide for you clarity, especially for those of you who don't agree with most of us who are here tonight. I'd like you to at least understand what the debate is about. Or as I have come to conclude, with great sadness, I might add, there is a civil war in America. Thank God it is not violent, and may it always not be violent, but the differences between left and right are enormous, and in most cases not bridgeable. Either people on the left will adopt what people on the right believe, or vice versa, or the civil war will continue. But it is our task to at least understand what the differences are, so I'd like to go down a whole list. Then, when I'm done, I'd like those of you who differ to be the first ones to ask questions or just even state why I'm wrong. I have no problem with that. I will not be rude to you, even if you're rude to me. But I want people to hear how the objections can be answered. That's a very valuable part of my visits to college campuses. So, since Israel was the first item mentioned, I'm going to go down a list of differences of left and right. The left believes that Israel is the villain in the Middle East. The right believes that Israel is the good guy in the Middle East. Not the perfect guy, because there are no perfect guys, but the good guy. It is an amazing thing to me that there are people who believe Israel is the villain. I debated at the famous Oxford Forum 2 years ago, and the subject of the debate was, is Israel or Hamas the primary obstacle to peace in the Middle East? And there were two PhDs, a professor of international relations and a young PhD. It's 2 against 2 at the Oxford Forum. And they actually argued that Israel was the greater obstacle to peace. And I made a statement, which you can see on YouTube until they take it down. And you can actually see the statement that I made. This is the first time, if they're right, Israel is the greater obstacle, it would be the first time in world history that between a free state and a totalitarian state or police state, it was the free state that wanted war and the police state wanted peace. There is no other example. You have to affirm that all rules of morality and politics have been switched in the Middle East, that the bad guy is the free state and the good guy is the police state. It is mind-boggling. It would be as if I said to them in the 30s, there would have been a debate here, is Nazi Germany or the United Kingdom or Great Britain the greater obstacle to peace in Europe? And would that have been a debate? Of course not. How would you know if you knew nothing other than that fact? How would you know how to how would you know how to vote? You would know because Britain was free and Nazi Germany was not free. Because it's 100% people in freedom don't like to die and don't like to kill. It's just a given. People in police states either like it or have no choice about it. Secondly, the notion of I'm not anti-Jewish, I'm anti-Israel is so perverse as to be laughable. It is perverse. Let me just explain. It would be like saying, I've used this analogy my whole life. It would be like saying, I love Italians I love Verdi and Puccini, and I love Vivaldi, and I love Italian art, and I love pizza and Italian food, but I believe Italy should be destroyed. That is what anti-Zionists argue. We love Jews, but of all the 220 countries on earth, only one is illegitimate. And it happens to be the only Jewish one. But I as a Jew, or I as a non-Jew who cares about morality, I'm supposed to believe you. You just happen to have picked the only Jewish country in the world to be extinct. You're a fraud if you say that. You are not real. You are fooling yourself. At least be honest. Every country has a right to exist except the Jewish one. 22 Arab countries are legit. The one Jewish one is not legit. And I'm supposed to believe you have nothing in for Jews because you have a Jewish friend, or because there are Jews who agree with you. Of course there are Jews who agree with you. There have been Jews who have hurt Jews all through modern history. Trotsky, Marx, Rosa Luxemburg. I mean, the list is gigantic. Why Jews are the only group to produce people who hurt their own group more than any other. Americans produce it as well. It's a very interesting thing. The only two groups who really do. There's no other example of it. Why is a very complex question. I think it has to do with the fact that Jews have been so hurt, so hit, so hurt, so trampled and tortured for so long that they think that if they are nice to their enemies, they won't be hurt. I truly believe that there's that psychopathological root to Jews who hate Israel. There is no other explanation. Were there blacks for apartheid? What would you think of a black who said, you know, I think apartheid's great? That is the same as Jews who think Hamas is great. There is no difference. That is the state of that one clear issue. And by the way, Churchill, I just finished reading this 1,000-page biography of Churchill. And the author, Andrew Roberts, makes a very interesting point. Roberts is not a Jew. He had nothing involved in that way. And he said Churchill understood something, which is why he was the only voice against Hitler from the beginning. He understood that the anti-Jew is anti-human. That there is no greater indicator of evil than anti-Semitism. It is the early warning society for good, warning signal for good people. Just know the anti-Semite never ends with the Jews. They begin with the Jews, but they never end with the Jews. The non-Jews who dismissed Hitler as the Jews' problem, like people dismiss Hamas and Hezbollah as Israel's problem, they don't understand they are next. That is the amazing thing of not learning from history. No one ends with the Jews. The Iranian regime has declared, and this is unparalleled on earth, that it aims to extinguish another country from the face of the earth. There is no parallel. There is no hatred like Jew hatred. There never has been, because only Jew hatred is exterminationist hatred. There are bigots all over. The English don't like the Irish don't like the English, the French don't like the Germans don't like the French, the Russians don't like the Poles don't like the Russians. Everybody hates their neighbor. That is a rule on the face of the earth. They like the country 2 countries over. That's the way it works. But there's there is no exterminationist desire. There is no, we will get rid of Poland. It will be extinguished. We will conquer Poland, we will rule Poland, but only Iran and the anti-Israel forces wish to extinguish Israel so that there could be a 23rd Arab state. There aren't enough Arab states, but one Jewish state the size of New Jersey is too much. That's it in a nutshell. There is something morally sick about anti-Israel people. Morally sick. So that's the clarity on the Middle East dispute. One other word about it. I, as a Jew, tell fellow Jews all the time, it is none of my damn business who Israelis choose as their leaders. If a Jew wishes to intervene in Israeli politics, make aliyah. That's it. It's very simple. You can fly to Israel even from here, nonstop, and you are a citizen the next day, then you can say whatever you like. But to live in the safety of America, where no one is trying to slaughter you as they are in Gaza and in Lebanon and among Palestinians, and tell Israel what to do, let me tell you something. I supported Israel when it had left-wing prime ministers as strongly as when it has right-wing prime ministers, because all I care about is Israel's security. That I have my opinions about who Israelis should elect is just one man's opinion. I do not have the arrogance to tell Israelis whom they should choose as their prime minister. The American Jewish community's arrogance to tell Israel you are wrong in whom you choose democratically as your leaders, this is an arrogance that can only be explained in the great Jewish word chutzpah. It is colossal chutzpah. It is exponential chutzpah. Move, make aliyah, tell Israel why they're wrong. In the meantime, it is the only state on earth that is threatened with extinction. They could use your support. Okay. I was told that one of the comments that I have made that is controversial on this campus, which, if it's true, doesn't reflect well on the campus. It certainly reflects well on me. I said to the motto, believe women, I don't believe women, and I don't believe men, I believe evidence. I don't understand why that's controversial. The idea that gender determines truth is perverse. It's just another perversity. Women don't lie? That's as absurd as men don't lie. There are honest women and honest men, and lying women and lying men. It's so obvious that this is controversial. Is just depressing. I don't know what to say. I mean, I understand some things that I will say will be controversial, but why is that one? How could believe evidence possibly be anti-male or anti-female? Truth is our friend. Because for every female, for every female who makes a charge, aren't there men in her life and men in the life of the person being charged against? Doesn't every man against whom a charge is made usually have a wife, always has a mother, or have a sister, or have a daughter? What do they think? What did the Kavanaugh family think? One of the most honorable men in America, widely understood as honorable. Charges were made. There is no basis upon which to believe that they're true. Maybe she believes it. I'm not accusing her of consciously lying. I'm not a psychoanalyst, and I'm not a lie detector. But if there is no evidence, that's pretty important. But equally important, it happened 40 years earlier in high school. And here is what I wrote this week with regard to the governor of Virginia, whom I dislike intensely. I think he's a fool, but I don't believe he should resign. He did something in medical school which is reprehensible, though in its times was probably just regarded as some sort of edgy joke. I don't think the man was ever a Ku Klux Klan supporter, frankly. But you know, here is another left-right difference. The left doesn't believe in repentance. The right does. And I'm purposely choosing a left-wing Democrat, which unfortunately has become redundant, because when I started out in your age of you who were students, the Democratic Party was liberal, not left. And I have a whole video at Prager U on the differences between liberal and left. They have nothing in common except big government. That is the only thing that liberals and leftists agree on. Liberals believed in racial integration. Leftists believe in black dorms, black graduations. That is the opposite of liberalism. I will come to race in a moment, but please understand, as Alan Dershowitz, Hillary Clinton supporter, liberal, Jew, Harvard law professor, he said, and you will see it in the film Adam Carolla and I are making, which will be out later this year, you will see him say to me in his apartment in Manhattan, as a liberal, as an American, as a Jew, as a Democrat, I fear the left much more than I fear the right. If liberals understood their enemy is the left, not conservatives, the country would be in fine shape. It is that liberals still believe conservatives are their enemy. Liberals, we are your friend. We may differ on this or that or this, but you believe in free speech. We believe in free speech. The left does not believe in free speech. The left never believed in free speech because the left never believed in liberty. Leftism is a cancer. Liberalism is a blessing. Okay? And so is conservatism. They differ, but they're both blessings. The guardians of liberalism today are people like me, conservatives raised in liberal homes. Hey, I'm a Jew from New York. On my birth certificate, it said liberal. And that is considered to be binary. That's fixed. That, according to the left, you cannot change. So I said this, I made this comment, and back to the repentance issue. This is something new in American life, and I'll tell you why it's new. This is very important that you understand this. It is new that we go back to your college and high school years and hold you, who have lived a perfectly wonderful life since then, an honorable life since then, guilty. You can't be the governor of Virginia because of the blackface photo or the Ku Klux Klan almost cartoonish photo in your medical school yearbook 30 years ago, and you have not evinced racism since. You are now disqualified. The left is not only foolish, it is mean. There is a meanness to not recognizing that people change and that people become good. I held this whether they're Republican or Democrat. The same with Roy Moore, 40 years of monogamous, honorable life. And he was held guilty for, and what he did, I'm not excusing what he did, or if he did it, I don't know if he did it, where in his late 20s he was with teenage girls under 18. That's the allegation. There's no excuse for that. But he's led 40 good years of a monogamous family life. Why doesn't that count? That's the question. And I'll tell you why. Because of the radical secularization of our society. Judaism and Christianity have as its centerpiece the idea of penitence, that people can morally change, and we should welcome their change. The holiest day of Judaism is the Day of Atonement. At any time in life, you can turn your life around, and we now accept you. Christianity has the central prayer, the Lord's Prayer, that forgive us as we forgive others their trespasses. There is no forgiveness on the left. They're mean. They think they're good. They fool themselves. Leftism makes you mean. They talk about love, but they hate. If you can't accept that people can change, and 30 years or 40 years does not demonstrate a moral change, there is something wrong with you. This is central to our thinking. That's why I am against the Virginia governor resigning. It's a disgrace that he's being called. I wish Republicans didn't join the bandwagon. Republicans should have said, excuse me, we can't stand this guy. He doesn't know the difference between infanticide and murder. Nevertheless, he is not a racist. And maybe he was in medical school, but that's 30 years ago, and people can morally change. That's what the Republicans should have said. But as I've said so often, there are two parties, the destructive and the stupid, and I'm a member of the stupid. I'm proud of it. It does a lot of good, but they don't know how to fight. They don't know how to fight. You don't join this sick bandwagon that 30 years ago there was a picture of you, and that means you can't be the governor because you're a racist. The cheapening of the word racism on the part of the left has only served to cheapen the fight against genuine racism. If everyone is a racist, as the morons of the left tell us in schools like this, every white is a racist whether or not he or she knows it, or if everyone's a racist, no one's a racist. If everyone is a fascist, no one's a fascist. They have cheapened the fight against evil. Among the many terrible things the left has done, they have cheapened the fight against evil. Nazism is really evil. The president knows Nazism is evil. He never in his life said a Nazi could be a good person. In Charlottesville, all he said was, there are good people and bad people on both sides, and any intellectually honest person knows he was not referring to Nazis and Antifa. If for no other reason, we know he doesn't think you could be Antifa and be a good person. He was talking about the people against statues and the people for keeping the statues. And he was right. There are good people on both sides of that argument. It is a very difficult question. Do you keep up statues of people who did wrong? I think you do. Peter Stuyvesant was an anti-Semite, the first governor of New York. And as a Jew who has fought anti-Semitism his whole life, I would oppose the removal of the statue to Peter Stuyvesant in Manhattan. You don't rewrite history by taking down statues. That's all the way it is. The president is a Nazi. The resistance for the Democratic Party to take on the label of the anti-Nazi French heroes who were tortured to death when caught. It's cheap grace, folks. It's, hey, let me think I'm a hero when I'm a gutless wonder. They had guts, the resistance, because if they were caught in Germany or France, they were tortured to death. In America, if you're part of the Democratic or left-wing resistance, you get an op-ed in the New York Times. You're not tortured. It's a fraud to call it resistance. It is the first time in American modern history, certainly since World War II, which used that term, that anybody has declared its opposition to a president the resistance. But they've cheapened all terms. Whether it's rape or Nazi or fascist, it's just been cheapened. And now resistance. Next. The left believes in big government. The right believes in small government. This is a big deal because the bigger the government, the smaller the citizen. The bigger the government, the more the corruption. Because power corrupts. That's why. Why do you want to give people so much power? Do you understand? If you really care about goodness, you want smaller government. You know what the American ideal is? I take care of me, I take care of my family, and I take care of my community. The left-wing ideal is the government takes care of me, the government takes care of my family, the government takes care of my community. Why is that a more noble ideal? Which will produce kinder human beings. That's why conservatives per capita per income give so much more charity than liberals. Because the more left you get, like in Europe, Europeans give almost no charity because they were raised with big government. Why should I help my neighbor? The government will. You think that's noble? You on the left, you think that's a noble idea? I don't have to do a damn thing for my neighbor because the government will? That's what we are breeding in the United States. Why bother? Why bother marrying? The government will take care of me if I have children. Why bother marrying? I don't need a man. By the way, the New York Times had column after column about how unnecessary fathers are. Yes. Oh, you don't know. If you don't read the Times, you are spared. I do because it's my living. The nihilism that permeates that newspaper is just beyond belief, what is stated on a regular basis. Big government, little government is a big deal because little government means more freedom. And they understood why they can do it. And that brings me to the next difference. Are people basically good? The left thinks people are basically good. The right lives on earth. I was with a group of liberal clerical students at a seminary. I won't say any more about that today, before I came here. And I asked them, how many of you believe people are basically good? Every single hand of these future clerics was raised. Which is amazing because Judaism and Christianity are utterly united on the belief that people are not basically good. And and by the way, as a Jew, I ask my fellow Jews who are really on the people are basically good bandwagon, because most Jews are liberal or left, you, of all people, Jews after Auschwitz, believe people are basically good? Are you out of your minds? And the answer is no, we're leftists. Because that's what the left teaches you. They have to teach you people are basically good, because then they can blame racism and poverty on crime. You get it? That's a very important belief on the left, that people are basically good. Why would a good person rape? Why would a good person murder? Why would a good person hold up a bank? Because clearly, if you're good, you wouldn't do those things. So they blame outside forces. That's why this issue of are we basically good is so significant, because the upshot of the belief is so significant. If you believe people are basically good, you blame society for people's evil. If you believe people are not basically good, you blame them for their evil. There's a very big difference. It's not them, it's poverty. It's not them, it's racism. It's not them, it's guns. Isn't it an amazing thing to blame guns? No, think about it. Do you know how bizarre that is? Blame guns? Guns in good people's hands don't do bad. Guns in bad people's hands do bad. Why is that? Why do 5-year-olds understand that? And I'm not a 5-year-old fan. I don't think we have a lot to learn from 5-year-olds. But it's just so elementary. These things are elementary. Often I am told, I listen to your show, and I got to tell you, it's just common sense you speak. I said, that's right. Common sense and conservatism are synonymous. That's what you have to understand. You have to violate the laws of common sense to take on a leftist idea. People are basically good. This is amazing. They believe people are basically good, but every white person in America is a racist. That's pretty amazing. All these good people became racists over the period of time. It's just astonishing. Because it's not coherently thought through. No left-wing position is coherently thought through. Left-wing positions are felt. That's why feelings are such a big deal. So here's a big one too. The left is big on feelings. The right doesn't give a damn how you feel. We give a damn how you act. I've written a couple of books on Judaism, writing my commentary on the Bible, the Rational Bible. One of my favorite lines from Judaism, which I learned in yeshiva when I was about 7, is Lo hamachshava ha'ikar ela ha'maaseh. I don't know why I said it in Hebrew. It's really not, most of you are not Hebrew scholars. I just did because that's the way it comes to my brain. It is not the thought that counts, it's the deed. A guy called my show in my early days of radio. If I could just get a little bottle of water that was floating around, that would be great. So a guy calls me up and he said, Dennis, because I don't know if you know my show, many of you do, many of you don't, but I talk about everything. There's a happiness hour, there's a male-female hour. So a guy called me many years ago, he said, Dennis, you got to help me out here. I am a terrible son. And I said, really, tell me, why are you a terrible son? He said, well, let me tell you, I've been taking care of my elderly mother for 10 years. I am her sole financial support, her sole emotional support. It's 24/7 care. And I got to tell you, Dennis, there are times when, to be honest, I wish my mother would succumb to her illness and die. And I then said, well, in fact, let me tell you something. Thank you. I actually think you are a great son. And he actually thought I was mocking him. I'll never forget that. He thought, Dennis, please don't make fun of me. I said, make fun of you? I'm dead serious. You are a great son because of how you treat your mother. I don't judge you by your thoughts. I judge you by your deeds. This is everything, everything. That is why the left-wing question is, does it feel good? The conservative question is, does it do good? They are often not related. Raising the minimum wage to $15 in Seattle felt good, but it didn't do good. It bucks a lot of young people out of work, and they need work to start climbing the ladder of responsibility in life. It put a lot of It put a lot of restaurants out of business, but it feels good. It caused a lot of fast food chains to simply automate. You now order from an iPad. That's a lot cheaper than $15 an hour an iPad. Does it do good is not a left-wing question. Does it make me feel good about me? That's central. These are huge differences between left and right. The left-wing belief in equality versus the right-wing belief or conservative belief in liberty. It's the French Revolution versus the American Revolution. We had life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They had liberty, equality, and fraternity. Equality was not an American ideal. That all people are created equal is in the Declaration of Independence. That is an American belief. We are all God's children. That is correct. But the value of equality of result or material equality, that clashes with liberty. A free country allows a shortstop to make 100 times more than a teacher. That's the way it works. Because in a free country, that's what people pay more to see, a great shortstop. Is it fair? Is it right? God can answer that question. But as soon as you say, as they say, for example, in Scandinavia, or now California, half of the boards of directors of publicly held companies must be female. That's equality, but it's not liberty. I am not free to choose whom I want on my own board. So this is just an example. And the same, obviously, free speech. I must admit, I knew the left was bad very early in my life, but I never believed that the freedom of speech in America would ever be threatened. This campus and every other campus in this country has little belief in free speech. Because your generation, 50% of your generation says, oh, I believe in free speech, but not for hate speech. Not realizing, because they have been taught by people who have made sure that they don't think clearly, they don't realize that that's the whole point of free speech. It's no point for free speech to allow for love speech. So obviously, free speech allows for what you consider hate speech. In the 1970s, there was a Nazi march in Skokie, Illinois. You know why they chose Skokie, those despicable people? Because a lot of Holocaust survivors lived there. So they wanted to rub it in again, watching people in swastikas march down their streets. Those are sadists, sadists. But Jewish organizations and the ACLU and others said, hey, it's a country that allows free speech. For Nazis to march in a Holocaust Jewish neighborhood. But today, the ACLU has abandoned its belief in free speech. It is now a left-wing organization, not a civil libertarian organization. So now it's against hate speech. That's why PragerU videos, 80 of the 400 we have put out, are on the restricted list on YouTube. That's where theoretically pornography and violence are put, so that kids can't watch it, and schools can't watch it, and libraries can't watch it. That's what the restricted list on YouTube is. 80 of our videos. Real pornography ones, like Dershowitz talking about Israel's founding and the legality of it. Yeah. Victor Davis Hanson on the Korean War. You have no idea the nudity in that particular one. I can't believe the guy did it. I'm making you laugh, but it's really something to cry about. I must admit, I never predicted a war against free speech in the United States. You're allowed to deny the Holocaust in the United States. You're not allowed to deny the Holocaust in Europe. There's a lot more free speech in the United States. But we're becoming, because the left loves Europe, more like Europe. Hey, they ban hate speech, we'll do it too. And what's hate speech? Whatever we don't agree with. That's all it means. That is all it means. When I spoke at the University of Wyoming last year, they had the usual six herbs: sexist, intolerant, xenophobic, homophobic, Islamophobic, racist, and bigoted, when they describe me, none of which are true. They are the opposite of whom I am, but it doesn't matter because I'm conservative. I must be all these horrible things. But of course, they even included anti-Semite. Yeah, it's up there. I always get a kick out of that when the left calls me an anti-Semite, and then you see some commenter go, yeah, but he's Jewish. And then but because they just use these phrases and they shut down, and it's really, Spotify just removed the PragerU ads from Spotify. We can't advertise. They didn't even give us a reason. This is not the America I grew up in, I will tell you. This is really new stuff. Liberty is a big value. We have the Liberty Bell, not the Equality Bell. And do you know where they got this value from? The Bible. You know what's on the Liberty Bell? There were two things inscribed on the Liberty Bell: the manufacturer and a verse from the Torah. Because the founders of this country were Christians deeply rooted in the Hebrew Bible, in the Old Testament. Has been the most Judeo-philic country in the history of the non-Jewish world. And you shall proclaim liberty throughout the land to all its inhabitants, from the book of Leviticus. And let me tell you, anybody who knows Leviticus knows his Bible. That is not, so when I'm on a plane, I never see anybody opening up to Leviticus. It's amazing. But that's where it's from. Proclaim liberty. And they understood something. The bigger the government, the less the liberty. That's why you need a big God. Secular conservatives are terrific, but they don't understand the importance of the American Trinity, which is on every coin. In God we trust, e pluribus unum, and liberty. You won't have liberty if God disappears. Because people have to feel that they are accountable to something higher than themselves in order to do good. And it's going to either be a government or a God. In the book of Exodus, when the midwives refused Hitler's orders to kill all the Hebrew babies and drown them in the Nile, it gives the reason they did: because they feared God. If you fear God, you don't fear Pharaoh. In the United States today, as it becomes more and more secular, This, I believe, I've written an article on it. You could see it tonight on the internet. There is greater fear of the left in America than fear of anything else. People are just afraid. They're afraid to even acknowledge that they're a conservative, let alone support the President of the United States. It is an astonishing thing, the reign of fear that the left has created in businesses. I conduct as an avocation. I'm into music. I conducted at the Disney Concert Hall a year and a half ago, a Haydn symphony. And there was a big controversy about it because 7 of the musicians would not play for a conservative. By the way, you have no idea how many musicians volunteered to play in the orchestra. And it was the orchestra of one of the most left-wing cities in America, the Santa Monica Symphony Orchestra. Nevertheless, out of the 70, 63 played. But the New York Times wrote a whole piece on it about the big controversy over a conservative conducting, and all they did is focus on the 7, not on the 63 that played. So it got national attention, because once the Times does it, everybody else covers it. And anyway, what was fascinating was the letters I got from members of the greatest orchestras in the country, email that I received saying, I'll never forget one from a member of, I know orchestras, one of the greatest orchestras in the country. She's in the string section, and she wrote to me, I'm in this orchestra for 30 years. No one knows I'm a conservative. Is there any liberal in America who has to hide from conservatives that they're a liberal? I don't think there's one, because we don't hurt you. We think you're wrong. You think we're evil. It's a big difference. You have to think we're evil because you don't argue with us. So we must be dismissed as evil. Why do they call us racist, bigoted, homophobic, xenophobic, and so on? Because they don't have arguments. We don't call them names. Let's argue. Let's debate. I debated a leftist at a San Francisco synagogue last year on the subject of Israel. And I'm very sweet in debates. I never mock or condemn. I just argue. And in my opinion, I thought I prevailed in that debate. I may be wrong, but here's the proof that I won. YouTube even put the debate on its restricted list. Half the time a leftist was talking, and it's still on the restricted list. Lest people watch a leftist lose to a conservative. It's a mockery what they do. And this is every day. Next difference. The founders believed in a republic. The left believes in a democracy. It's a big difference. That is the reason that we have 2 senators from every state. States with 30 million people have 2 senators, and states with 2 million people have 2 senators. Because it's the United States of America, not just America. They did not trust the great majority. They didn't, because they knew people are not basically good. So they didn't trust, just let's go with the majority. No. That's why there's an electoral college. And that's why the left hates the electoral college. And they're trying to get around it now, not using the constitutional amendment process. Colorado just today passed a law that all the electoral votes of Colorado will go to whoever wins the national vote. So in other words, if Colorado goes for candidate A and the country goes for candidate B, tough Coloradans, we don't care. It's a republic. Or as Franklin said, it's a republic if you can keep it. He knew this is an experiment. America is an experiment. Every generation has to reaffirm the experiment or it disappears. That's my worry. The left believes America is racist, bigoted, imperialistic. Conservatives believe America is the least racist country in the history of any multi-ethnic, multiracial country. They believe this is an essentially rotten society. There's proof. This is essential to the left. The left believes that it is a bad society. President Obama did. Racism is in our DNA, he said. And President Trump is accused of dividing the country. Racism is in our DNA, said the black president of the United States. Is there some disconnect here? A racist country elected a black president and didn't give a damn. The only thing I cared about him was the color blue, because that's Democrat, not the color black. This notion that conservatives are racist is one of the great gargantuan big lies of history. I have asked conservatives, when 1,000 conservatives would be in an audience, I asked them which they would prefer. Okay, it's a good example. So I said, don't cheer yet or don't vote yet. I would tell them, what would you prefer? 9 white, male, Christian liberals, or 9 black, female, lesbian conservatives? Now, why are you laughing? Because it's obvious who we don't give a damn. None of the rest matters. Only your values matter. The rest is nothing. We care about your values. We don't care about your race. This is a new thing in America. Race is important. Race is insignificant. Nazis thought race was important, and the left thinks race is important. And Jews support the left, which is mind-blowing. Did they learn nothing from the 30s and the 40s to support people who think race is significant? Race is insignificant. It is as important as your shoe color. It is a mind-boggling thing that you are taught at this campus that race is significant. Hence this great belief in diversity. That's right, the left believes in racial, not ideological diversity. No, racial diversity. And now gender diversity. Because after all, there are 56 genders according to the Facebook application page. Not 3, not 4, 56. We believe in excellence. That is why Shakespeare's mural was up at the Department of English at the University of Pennsylvania. Not because he was white or male, but because he's the greatest writer of English in English language history. That's why. That's the only reason. But they took it down because he's white, European, and male. They took it down at the English department of an Ivy League university, and they put up a black lesbian poet. Because that's what was significant, that she was black and lesbian. Not that she's excellent. Excellence doesn't matter to the left. Excellence is a code for racism. When President Trump said in Warsaw, we have to protect Western civilization, it has created some of the greatest things, like the greatest music. The left said that was a whistle. They are always hearing dog whistles, which suggests something, but I don't want to say what it suggests. If we don't hear the dog whistles and they do, okay, I'll leave it at that. But it is a dog whistle to say that we want to protect Western civilization when Franklin Roosevelt, who was a liberal, not a leftist, a liberal, said all through World War II, we have to protect Western civilization. And by the way, against other whites. Isn't that interesting? We were fighting whites. Of course we were fighting whites, because only values matter. Only values matter. He said that we have to protect Franklin Roosevelt said over and over, we must protect Christian civilization. Can you imagine if Donald Trump said that today? Can you imagine? This Jew who wrote a book on anti-Semitism, who taught Jewish history at Brooklyn College, knows about Christian anti-Semitism historically, agrees we should protect Christian civilization. Yes. Because, as I tell Jews and have my whole life, do not saddle American Christians with the sins of Europe's Christians. America's Christians are one of the greatest inventions in human history. They're not perfect, but they're damn good. And they made a damn good place. The proof that they consider America essentially worthless was President Obama again. The man who had a way with words, no doubt about it. But 5 days before he was elected in 2008, he said to a cheering throng of fools, I have no other word, it's depressing the cheering is more depressing than what he said, but what he said is plenty depressing. We are 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America. Let me explain something. The left wants to fundamentally transform the United States of America, and Barack Obama was a leftist, not just a liberal. That's the given. That's a code for being a leftist. If you think America needs to be fundamentally transformed. You can't have it both ways. You can't say, I love America and I want it fundamentally transformed. You don't want to fundamentally transform that which you love. If any spouse ever said, you know, I love my wife, but I would like to fundamentally transform her. We would have a right to be skeptical. If you really love her, I'm not sure if fundamental transformation is a good idea. Likewise, a wife about a husband. Hell, I love him, but I'd like him fundamentally transformed. It doesn't work. They don't know what they say because they say what feels right at any given moment. Oh, we love America. Don't charge us on the left with not loving America. Well, then why do you want to fundamentally transform it? Make up your mind. You can't have both. It is not possible to have both. And frankly, if you don't love America, don't love America. I'm not going to force you to love America. But don't say you do when you have such a contemptuous view of this society. That's all. You can't have it both ways. Do you know what animates people on the left? Because this has taken me a lifetime to figure this out. What animates women to think they're oppressed? American women go on these women's marches because they're oppressed? Do they know what oppression means? Do they have a clue? I can't, it's beyond belief. Millions of American women, and they're almost all middle class and upper middle class women, think they're oppressed? By whom? In what way? Oppressed. So this is what this is my belief. Because it's a puzzle. It really is. I'm not joking. It is a puzzle. How do seemingly intelligent people think such nonsense? Dangerous nonsense. And in the final analysis, I have come to this equation. Secularism plus affluence plus boredom equals leftism. There are three terrible components. See, if you're not secular, you have meaning in your life. Christianity and Judaism fill religious Christians and religious Jews with meaning. The left is overwhelmingly not only not religious, but anti-religious. So leftism fills the void that the absence of religion has left. It is a secular religion. It is the most dynamic religion in the world of the last 100 years. You can have a secular religion just as you can have a God-based religion. That's one. Number two, they're bored. Betty Friedan, if you read the Feminine Mystique, Betty Friedan was bored out of her life being a housewife. Poor thing, she was stuck in the suburbs and, you know, in a middle-class home in America. Poor thing with cars and dogs and kids and a husband and refrigeration and electric dishwashers and all of that. But life was oppressive. I don't quite understand why that's oppression. 99% of the women of the world would not regard that as oppressive. Oh, you mean somebody is working to take care of the family, you are free to do pretty much what you want with your day. You have no financial needs. You poor thing. This is an amazing thing that American women think they're oppressed. It's an amazing thing that blacks think they're oppressed. You're a lucky dude to be a black in America. You're just real lucky. You're lucky. You know what the great privilege is? Not white privilege, American privilege. That's the biggest privilege of all. That's why people want to come into the country. They want American privilege too. This notion of all these oppressed groups, the Democrats need people to believe they're oppressed or they have no votes. Here's a rule, my friends. Happy blacks, vote Republican. Happy women, vote Republican. Happy Jews, vote Republican. Happy salamanders, vote Republican. Unhappiness is the secret to democratic success. If we can convince you life is miserable for you in America, we get your vote. What will you blacks do without us Democrats? What will you women do without us Democrats? What will you Latinos do without us Democrats? Right? So they have to, don't you understand? It is an amazing thing. What is the group of women that vote, in fact, Republican? Married women with children. That is the one group of women. Single women are the greatest, are as reliable a vote for almost as reliable as the black vote for the Democrats. And guess what? As a general rule, a single woman at 30 and a married woman at 30, the married woman is happier. That's a rule of life. There are exceptions to every rule. I'm not talking about a woman widowed after 40 years of marriage who's happy to be alone or divorced after 40 years of marriage. No, and even if she loved her husband, but she's okay alone. I get it. I understand that. I live in the real world. But the happiest women are married with children, and they vote Republican. That's the way it works. So they have a vested interest in telling you you are unhappy. Never in history do I know where it is the vested interest of a party to gain power through telling people that they have it bad. Unhappy people, join us. You have nothing to lose but your happiness. It's a rewriting of Marx's statement to the proletariat. I mean, isn't it amazing? You know, I do a happiness hour every week. I have since 1999. I wrote a book on happiness. I have pretty good, well thought through ideas on happiness. And while my only agenda of that hour and my book is to make people happier or enable them to be happier, I realized after a number of years, while it's not my agenda, it is a factor. I'm making more Republicans. I never thought of it that way. But as people get happier, they switch parties. They no longer see themselves as ruined by American life. It's a very, very important aspect of current American life. All right, I'm coming near the end. The list is endless, but I'm going to just give you two more. Open borders versus closed borders. They deny they're for open borders, but of course they're for open borders. Op-ed piece after op-ed piece in the New York Times is about, listen, let's let people who want to come in, come in. These people just want to better their lives. A moral society lets in these people. And read what's on the Statue of Liberty. Give us your tired and your poor. That's the way we should be. That's why they're against the wall. That's the reason. They really do want a lot of people to come into the country. And by the way, there are two reasons. One is the more who come in, the more votes the Democrats get. That's just a fact. Now, why is that? Very simple. Because there's no other country in the world with the value of limited government. So people come in overwhelmingly, naturally, Democrats. The people who flee Honduras have not been thinking about Madisonian limited government much of their life. This is not anti-Honduran. The average graduate of this college doesn't think about limited government. It has nothing to do with where you're from. But in South America, it's almost always big government person against big government person. A guy who watches PragerU videos from Venezuela called my show. 27-year-old guy. He said, Dennis, I don't know if you realize this. The opposition to Maduro here is another socialist. And I said, yes, I didn't realize that, I said. And of course it makes sense. Because you know what the average person in Venezuela thinks? The problem is not socialism, it's Maduro's corruption. That's what the left always says. Communism is beautiful in theory. Stalin screwed it up. That's what they believe. It's always the individual. It's never the system. To prefer socialism to capitalism? Capitalism is the only thing in history to have lifted billions of people out of poverty. People who love people. People who love people, as opposed to ideas, the left love ideas much more than they love people. If you love people, you love capitalism. Cannot be an exception to that rule. If you want to lift people from poverty, only capitalism makes money. Only capitalism creates wealth. Socialism spends the wealth that capitalism made. That's true in Sweden, Denmark, and Finland, just as it's true in Venezuela or the United States. That is a truism that you won't hear, I suspect, in almost any class at the University of California at Irvine, which is mind-boggling that you would not hear such a basic, elemental truth about life. Only capitalism creates wealth. When I was a kid, Superman was very popular, both in comics and on TV. I watched Superman and I adored him. His motto was, what was it? Truth, justice, and the American way. That's it. That was his motto. Truth, justice, and the American way. Sound nice, doesn't it? Can you imagine how that must sound to someone on the left? And the American way? And the American way? What are you talking? The American way is racist, imperialist, genocidal, and enslaving. The American way. So sure, he embodied that. So a few years ago, the Superman comics, they were written by liberals. Now they're written by leftists. He stood in front of the United Nations and renounced his American citizenship. He is now a citizen of the world. That's what they trust, citizens of the world. That's one of the reasons of the whole nationalism debate. Yes, nationalism can be used for evil and can be used for good, just like knives. Knives can save your life when used as a scalpel in surgery, and can kill you when used by a murderer stabbing you. There's no such thing as a good knife or good nationalism. There's no good knife and bad knife. There's the wielder. But nationalism can be good. It is good. Do you know why the Tutsis wiped out the Hutus wiped out the Tutsis in Burundi in about 20 years ago, in the greatest massacres in intensity since the Holocaust? Because they didn't have a national identity. They had a tribal identity. America is a great experiment of whatever your background, you identify as an American. That's the great American experiment. That's why it's e pluribus unum, from many one. Liberty, in God we trust, e pluribus unum. This is the great American experiment. Yes, I believe in having a nation. The left believes in having united nations. I don't want to be governed by the International Court. I don't want to be governed by the World Health Organization. I want the World Health Organization to do good, but I don't want it to govern the health of my country. I don't trust the world. Again, I say to my fellow Jews, are you out of your minds? You are big fans of world opinion? What the hell did world opinion do for us? America helped us, not world opinion. And finally, the most remarkable new difference, we conservatives have this bizarre notion that there are only two sexes. We, for truly reactionary reasons, can you explain it any other way? We believe that if you possess a vagina and a uterus and breasts and menstruate and produce eggs, you're a female. This is not a mockery of the transgender. Let me explain something very quickly. There is a tiny, tiny, infinitesimally small segment of humanity that is completely not at peace with their sex. My heart breaks for these people. It is simply a tragedy, and if they go around looking like the other sex, take the other sex's name, I will refer to you out of just simple human courtesy any way you want. But that is not what the left is saying. Be courteous to people with gender dysphoria. They're saying there's no such thing as sex or gender. And they call us anti-science. This is mind-blowing. So let me tell you my final understanding of the left. I am writing this commentary on the Bible because if we don't return to that, the greatest repository of wisdom, I think we're through. And it's... You know what God does in the first periods of creation? Creates order out of chaos. The left hates order. It loves chaos. And this is the ultimate expression of chaos. In Genesis, it said God created Adam, the human being. Male and female, he created them. It is the only distinction built in that matters to God. There are values distinctions that matter to God, good and evil and so on, holy and profane, a whole host. But the only built-in human distinction that is stated is male and female. That's why there's a law that a man cannot wear women's clothing and a woman cannot wear that which pertains to a man. It wants to keep that distinction essential to the human condition. Kids are being raised in the United States today. In New York City, as of January 1st, you are free to list no sex on the birth certificate of your newborn. Male, female, and X. The poor child whose parents put X. To raise a child with no sexual identity. I pity those kids. The left are child abusers. There is no other term. There are now more and more teenage girls having their perfectly healthy breasts removed surgically because they think that they're a boy. The monsters who take those off are worse than the people who perform female genital mutilation. Those people, at least, are prisoners of a culture that taught them that way. These doctors are getting paid to lop off girls' breasts at the age of 17 because the girl is announced without her parents even affirming, I'm a boy. This is sick stuff, my friends, but the human being does not like the divine order. Chaos is natural. Order is not. Order is divine. Chaos is natural. The left is a force for chaos. That's why this battle is so important, because if we lose America, it's lost. Where else is the battle taking place? Europe has surrendered. Where is the battle going to take place? That's why it's worth fighting. And that's why I do what I do. To fight. Thank you. It's a worthy fight, my friends. I will end with this. I was deeply affected by my visit to Normandy and the thousands of crosses commemorating the American dead, all of them 20, 21, 22 years old, mowed down by Nazi machine guns. And I remember what I said to myself. These guys died for America. No one's asking me to die for America. But I think I could live for it. That's what I'm asking you to do. Thanks very much. Thank you all. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Okie doke. I think I talked almost as long as the President's State of the Union address. All right, so if you disagree, I'm more than happy to have you up first. Don't feel self-conscious. We will treat you much more respectfully than the other way around. So, okay, let's begin. All I ask, by the way, it doesn't even have to be a question, but it does have to be brief for the sake of others to have a turn. That's all. Okay, we'll start here. Okay. By the way, somebody, if there's too much there, somebody should move over there because I'll alternate microphones. Okay, yeah.
Great. So I didn't disagree with you, but since I'm the first
Okay.
My name is Smith, and I go to Concordia University, Irvine, down the road. My question for you is, what would you say about someone who's just about to graduate, who wants to get into political journalism and potentially political commentary? What advice would you give to someone like you?
It's a very tough thing because to get an article published in the Washington Post or New York Times or LA Times from a conservative point of view is almost non-existent. They correctly fear anyone being exposed to our ideas. Correctly. From their perspective, they are right. They will be defeated whenever we are allowed to express ourselves freely. We have zero problem publishing them, reading them. You have all, everybody here, you are completely familiar with the left's views. They are completely unfamiliar with ours. That's part of the reason we always win debates, not just because we're better debaters. Sometimes we are, sometimes we're not. We win because they don't know any of our arguments and we know all of theirs. That's why. They live in a hermetically sealed universe. And so it's a very tough, what you will end up doing, probably, is being published on the internet. And you can get a reputation that way. You are not going to make any money that way, but you might start getting lectures. So a lot of times that's what leads to possible income. But you are entering, if you had liberal views or left-wing views, you would have a much greater chance of making a living as a political journalist. It's just true. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. You should still do it, and if you speak well, the speaking, there's television, there's radio. So good luck. Yes, please.
Thank you so much for coming out tonight. My name is Daniel Bean, and I'm a community member.
I'm sorry, you're a what member?
A community member.
Okay.
Thank you for coming to Irvine.
Right.
So you had said that one of the fundamental disparities between the left and right is the belief of whether or not humans are inherently good or not. Right? So you said that the left believes that humans are inherently good, and that underlines a lot of their faulty views. And then a few minutes later, or a few minutes earlier, you said that a lot of conservatives, their community supports that. And you as a person, you support your family, your community, whereas the left wants to rely on big government and public services to support people. My question is, wouldn't it be the opposite? If people are inherently bad, wouldn't you need the government and other public services to make up for the left?
You would if you didn't have religion. That is why the country was founded on the belief that we'd have a secular government and a religious population. That's the American dream. Not a religious government, but a religious population. And virtually every founder said that, including Benjamin Franklin, who was not an active Christian. I'm sure he didn't believe in the Trinity, but he believed in God, and he believed in afterlife, that God judges, and that without, Washington and others said, without a religious education, we don't have a chance to survive. That is the way, that would be their solution.
If I could ask one follow-up question.
Yeah.
The entire legitimacy of the epistemology of the right hinges on the belief of religion.
That's correct. Ultimately it does, and the tragedy is that a lot of secular conservatives don't know that. Yes, I've had debates with Jonah Goldberg on that. Yes, please.
Hi, I'm a UCI student. My name is Russell Matthias. I just wanted to ask, what can identify liberals, left, and the right? What can we do to just have some common ground or kind of tie back to each other?
Nothing. No. It's very important. I'm sorry. Liberals and conservatives have a great deal in common. Conservatives know what liberals don't. Liberals still think their enemy is conservatism and not leftism, as I said earlier. That's the best hope we have, is to teach liberals your enemy is leftism, not conservatism. But you have no idea. I grew up this way. I started reading and collecting books in my sophomore year in high school. And I remember when I counted, the first time I counted how many books I had, and they were all paperback because I couldn't afford a hardcover book, I had 32 books. And I remember one of them prominently called Danger on the Right. There was no book written by liberals, Danger on the Left. And it was inculcated in me. It took me a while to realize, wait a minute, the danger is not on the right in the United States. It's just not. The danger is on the left, and certainly today. So anyway, our hope is to convince liberals that you keep a lot of your values and so on, that's fine, but reaffirm them. Reaffirm racial integration. Reaffirm that race is insignificant. Reaffirm that free speech is a rock-solid foundation of liberalism. That's our only hope. Okay? Thank you. Yes?
Hi, my name is Luke, and I'll preface this with saying I'm a sort of a free speech absolutist. But when you said that the left rejects free speech and the right embraces it, I started having different thoughts come to mind on all the times the right has sort of attacked free speech. So, for example, Trump tweeted that people who burn the flag should go to jail for a year and be stripped of their citizenship. Roy Moore once said that the First Amendment only applies to Christians. It's usually conservatives that have supported the FCC regulating content in the airwaves based on decency. Justice Thomas was the only Supreme Court justice to dissent in the Virginia versus White decision and said that burning a cross can be banned. So are you willing to concede that the right also regularly attacks free speech?
Very rarely. Let me go through the list that you just recited. First, in no order of the way you put it necessarily, just what I remember. So you think that I, who has a public airwaves radio show on 200 stations in this country, I should be allowed to use the F word regularly? You believe that? You're an absolutist. A kid should be, you do.
Okay. The government should fine people $500,000 for using those words.
No. It's irrelevant what the fine is. Do you believe it should be legal?
Yes.
So any kid can turn on the radio and hear a stream of invective and perhaps an orgy with orgasmic sounds.
Any kid could Google pornography on the internet and find
Okay, fine. I'm sorry. I can't control that. I can control what is on the. Okay, you are an absolutist, and I think it's a foolish view because it's extreme. It's just extreme. The society is allowed to protect itself. This is not political. Remember, this is not political speech. Okay? Saying the F word is not political speech. When Eric Garcetti got up and said, this is a great effing day, and used the F word in front of tens of thousands of kids, it made a deep impact on me that the mayor of Los Angeles would say in Staples Center after the Kings won the Stanley Cup, I know a politician shouldn't do this, but I'm going to drink and curse at the same time. And this is the mayor of Los Angeles. That's why I rooted for the Patriots. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. I'm serious. I root for LA teams. I'm a big Kings fan, and I'm okay with Anaheim. But I just want to make clear, I didn't want the mayor to get up and said, when the Rams won the Super Bowl, it's a big effing day for Los Angeles. But for you, that's a non-issue. For me, it's an issue. So okay, all right, we differ. Okay, let's just, again, clarity. You may be right, I may be right. What was the next one? If Roy Moore said that freedom of speech is only for Christians, okay, fine. If he actually, it is inconceivable to me he believed that when he was running for office. It is such a stupid belief, and there was no founder who would have said it. Everyone is allowed 4 stupid comments in a lifetime, okay? So I forgive him. What was the other one? Oh, burning the flag. Burning the flag, good people can differ on. That's not speech, that's symbolic. It could be speech, maybe it isn't speech. In the final analysis, I come down on the absolutist side. You can be allowed to do so, but I am torn on the issue. If society says one specific thing is not allowed to be done, I don't think that that is a statement that you can't speak out on any issue. Okay, so that would be my answer. But if I had to vote on it, you want to burn the flag, and hopefully the opprobrium of the society will stop you from doing it again. Okay, thanks. Yes.
Hello. My question is, do you think content creators like yourself, Crowder, Ben Shapiro, and all them, do you think that it helps? Do you think that content creators like yourself and...
What? Oh, content creator. Okay, that was fast. Yes. Like me and Crowder and Shapiro, were those the examples you gave? Yes.
Do you think that may help sway more college age or younger people to the conservative side? Or do you think that most ages younger than that are kind of beyond redemption?
I don't know. If I didn't believe that minds could be changed, I would consider all of my endeavors useless. So since I don't wake up thinking, I think it's a huge battle, I know, you should see, it's phenomenal to see the mail that, you know, we had over 1 billion views. We have almost 2 billion views in total at Prager University. How many of you have seen a Prager University thing? Okay. That's great. It's great to hear. And anyway, so we believe we can change minds. That's why they don't want us. That's why they put 80 videos on the restricted list, because we do change minds. That's why I read all, I don't read all, because there are tens of thousands of comments, but so often, you know, oh, Prager University is a lying right-wing propaganda machine. This is a common attack of a leftist person on a comment page. Do you know that in all of the times that I have read it, no one has ever given an example of when we've lied? Not one. They just assert it. It's just like asserting so-and-so's a racist. The left believes asserting it makes it so. But I do believe, I do believe. Not everybody can have their mind changed, clearly. But I am convinced, I know it, it's not a belief that you can change minds. But there's another reason we do, and I do my work and we do our work. And that is, people say, well, you know, you're preaching to the choir. I've always had an answer to that. The choir forgot its melody. We better preach to the choir. Conservatives forgot what conservatism stands for. Not all conservatives can give the speech I just gave. I don't blame you. This is my life's work. But I want you to be able to give this speech. Because there are so many conservatives who in their heart know this is a good country. Then they send their kid to college and the kid comes back thinking it's an S-hole country. Okay, thank you very much. Yes?
I'd like to preface everything that I'm about to say with saying that I feel like I know you because I listen to your show. And
you do know me.
I actually, you might get a kick out of this, but I consider it a moral obligation to listen to your show.
I do too.
So, with that aside, I feel like, and I also consider you, I'm also trying to be a commentator or some sort of influence, because I think that conservatives should fight. However, we disagree a little bit, and maybe it's a nitpick, but maybe it's not. I think on the issue of humans are basically good or evil. And the reason I...
No. People are basically good or not good. I never said they're evil.
Okay, all right. Good or not good. Now, I would like to clarify something, if you will. Now, I think that what we consider human nature, we might be able to boil down to a couple of amoral characteristics. Like, for example, humans are basically empathetic. And you used, or basically cooperative, or basically aggressive, or basically impulsive, or basically anything. Just like your knife example, your gun example, it's the person. So what it is, I think that these are necessarily, because aggression can be used for good or evil, you know, just as much as empathy can, right? Empathy was used to justify the welfare state. So what I would like to clear up is, what use is it to say that people are basically not good? And I know that you have an argument on this. I just don't understand why it's not better to be a little more nuanced on the state.
Well, I am nuanced. Right? I never said people are basically evil. If people are basically evil, we'd get no good out of the human being. So, but we're not basically good. And why is that important? Well, I'll give you one of many reasons. I gave some in the speech. I'll give you one different one. If you believe, let's say you have children. If you believe people are basically good and are born good, then you won't drive yourself crazy teaching your children how to be good. And if you don't drive yourself crazy teaching your children how to be good, they probably won't be good. I wish the average parent, I have so many examples, but I guess one of my favorite ones is, how many times does the average parent say to their child, say thank you? Now, if we were basically good, once would suffice. The kid would understand, somebody did me a favor and a kindness. Of course I'll say thank you. Gratitude is a beautiful trait. But you have to say it approximately 10,000 times. And then hope it works. Because gratitude is the mother of goodness and happiness. So you want to make a grateful child, but you have to teach them to be grateful. But we have worked on self-esteem that is unearned. And we are reaping a terrible price for it. So I want people, my kids, I was hardly an ideal parent. But I will say this, and my kids would totally vouch for it. It was clear to them from the get-go, I didn't give a damn what college they went to. I didn't even give a damn if they went to college. I only cared about their character. That's all I cared about, not their grades. By the way, one of my kids is annoyed with me to this day that I never asked him about his homework. And I thought, you should thank God. Who the hell wants the parent to nudge you about your homework? But anyway, by the way, that is part of my theory. Your kids are going to hate you no matter what you do. So you might as well do what is right. Yeah.
What would you respond, so if somebody presents a counter-argument and says something like, well, humans receive a rush of endorphins after doing something good, right? So people feel good after doing something good.
Right, and they get a rush of adrenaline when they do something bad. Adrenaline trumps endorphins. Yes.
Hello, Mr. Prager.
Hi.
So you mentioned earlier in your speech how you're talking about Europe and how they pretty much surrendered their freedom of speech. Well, in the past year or two, past couple of months especially, there's been, with the yellow vests, there's been lots of protests. There's been like tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people, protesting and going against, or being like very anti-government, especially with the migrant crisis, what's going on there, and what's going on with the countries going against the EU's wishes, like Poland and Hungary and Austria, and those countries. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think there's still a place in Europe where freedom of speech and Western civilization can return, or do you think it's gone?
You know who will save, if Europe is saved, Western Europe will be saved, ironically, by Eastern Europe. They appreciate liberty more because they lived under communism. So they haven't had the time to become cynical about freedom and affluence and liberty as the West Europeans have. They still believe that national identity is significant, to which, of course, the New York Times responds that they are fascist. An East European nationalist is by definition a fascist. That's the way they look at it. So I just spoke in Romania last year because of Prager University, interestingly. Young people invited me to speak. I spoke to 1,500 young people in 2 Romanian cities. And I told them, they said, well, what about Western Europe, Western Europe, Western Europe? I said, why don't you put this in your minds? Maybe you will save Western Europe. Maybe Romania will save France. Maybe Poland will save Germany. And this was a very powerful thought to them that they had never entertained. They have an inferiority complex vis-a-vis the West. That's my hope. Okay, thank you. By the way, I'm a big believer that the speaker should leave before the audience does, so we'll take 5 more minutes. Does that sound okay? All right, 5 more minutes. So forgive me back there. I feel this is like the worst part. It's like when I see the names on the board on my show and I don't get to all of them. Okay.
Okay, so hi Dennis.
Hi.
Pierre. I'm a transfer student from France.
Wait a minute. Say that again. I want to hear it. I just want to hear it again. You are a conservative from France?
Yes.
How many friends do you have in France?
Not that many. So I'd like to have your opinion on something that's not that political, but still kind of. As a quasi-Orthodox Jew, do you think it's even possible to talk about politics without committing Lashon Hara?
Without using Lashon Hara?
Yeah.
Oh, not a question I expected. So here, I'll translate this in a nutshell. Can you speak? I have a great answer for you because it's a very important question. Judaism has a very, very strong emphasis on not humiliating other people publicly. So there's a concept called Lashon Hara, which means bad speech. So you speaking bad about others behind their back or even in front of them is a big taboo, a religious taboo. So how can I do my work, as it were, and not violate that rule? So I will tell you what I do. I'll give you an example. During the Clinton-Monica Lewinsky year, I announced on my radio show that I will not accept any jokes about Monica Lewinsky. The woman is created in God's image. If you want to tell a joke about Monica Lewinsky, do not call my radio show. And I was the only talk show host I knew of who forbade Monica Lewinsky jokes. Exactly because of that law. To this day, I frequently attack columns without saying who wrote them. Because I'm not interested in attacking the writer, I'm interested in attacking the ideas. So it plays a very operative role in my life. Thank you. Yep, go ahead, yep.
So I disagree with you that race is insignificant. I think that discrimination is the big problem with liberals. So liberals say discrimination is bad, never discriminate. So giving a woman a jacket when she's cold is considered sexist. It's treating a woman differently than a man. And so the problem is when you say discrimination is bad, that stops society from having gender norms. If there are biological differences between sexes or races, it implies you need to treat people differently based on those differences. And there are. Men like video games, women like social media. Most women would rather raise a child than work overnight to give their boss a raise. And I think it's really liberals' inability to acknowledge these differences that causes their brains to shut down and say, no biological differences, no racial differences, all problems are institutionalized racism or sexism, orders are racist. And so it's ultimately, I think, this axiom that's really the fundamental problem, and it's really the root cause of everything.
Well, I don't know if it's the root cause of everything, but on what you said about gender, I agree. There's a fundamental difference. By the way, I knew things were bad, and I wrote it. This is not telling you today. The argument for same-sex marriage was gender doesn't matter, only love does. As soon as I heard gender doesn't matter, I realized we were on a slippery slope, and we are now on the bottom of the slope. Gender not only doesn't matter, it doesn't exist. So it was not a good argument. There are other arguments. I understand equality and a whole host of things, a complex question, but gender doesn't matter I did not find to be an operative argument. Race does not matter. That I do hold. So it's ironic, they say gender doesn't matter and race does, because basically they're always wrong. It is an amazing thing to be almost always wrong, but they are. Okay, let me take this one here. I feel bad, I really do, but what can I do? I do feel bad. Because I would, as far as I'm concerned, I could come and just take Q&A, but because I've heard me a lot. Yes.
So I have a question about the foreign policy agenda of the GOP, right? We like to claim that the GOP is the party of freedom, but if you look at the foreign policy, President Trump supports sending taxpayer money to Saudi Arabia. And it sounds like there's a lot of people in the GOP who support regime change in Venezuela, in Iran, and all these different countries. So I just want to know, because I'm more of a libertarian on foreign policy, I just wanted to know what your position on that is. Do you support Saudi Arabia? Do you support spending taxpayer money and giving them weapons when they killed 3,000 Americans and we still haven't held them accountable?
Yes, I do. And I'll tell you why. Because if I'd have been alive during World War II, I would have supported shipping weapons to Stalin. Stalin was the greatest mass murderer in history, except for Mao. Hitler was third. Because I don't think like a libertarian. I think like a moral person, I think, should think. I think in moral terms. What increases good? Defeating Hitler was the greatest good at that time. Therefore, supporting a man who makes the Saudis look like Boy Scouts, to the extent, well, they're no longer Boy Scouts, Scouts, the supporting, so I would have, as Churchill, who hated the Bolsheviks, hated them, said, if I would something to the effect, I would support the devil to fight Hitler. I don't understand not thinking the way I just said. This notion, they're really not good guys, so I won't fight the really worse guys. The biggest obstacle to Iran's influence in the Middle East is Israel and Saudi Arabia. Iran is a bigger enemy than Saudi Arabia, so I will support Saudi Arabia. And that's the way the Republicans think. The left apparently doesn't think that way. Oh, they're really killing a lot of people in Yemen, so let's boycott. Or Khashoggi got killed. Khashoggi, yes, it's disgusting what they did to Khashoggi. Totally disgusting. But the number of journalists killed by Erdogan in Turkey dwarfs the number of journalists killed by the prince in Saudi Arabia. Nobody is advocating that we have no relations with Turkey. But so that's, yes, that's how I think. I think in to me, what in the lesser here, the lesser of two evils promotes good. That's the miserable truth of life. That was, by the way, I'll end with this, that is why I was against Donald Trump, and I was wrong, by the way. I admit it, I wrote a column on it. I was for every other Republican other than Donald Trump during the primaries. But I wrote in my first piece for National Review, if he's nominated, I will support him. Because any Republican today is better than any Democrat. That's just the way it is. I wish it weren't true. I wish it weren't true. That's why I never understand Americans who say, oh, I vote for the candidate. What does that mean? The nicer person? The one who committed less adultery? No, what does it even mean? I don't understand the argument. I vote based on what values does that person represent, whether they're flawed or not. God worked with King David, who makes Trump look like a Boy Scout. Yes, not only did he commit adultery and impregnate the woman with whom he committed adultery, he had the husband killed so he could get away with having adultery with that woman. And God decided he could work with him. So somehow or other, if God could work with David, I could work with Trump. Thank you all, everybody. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.